Good morning, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you were on the lifeboat. Got a little late start this morning. Had a couple of malfunctions. Things been giving me the business on trying to get everything up and running the way it's supposed to be. So we're going to see if we can get better at this. I don't know. I don't know if it'll happen. Truthfully, I don't. But so this is a fun one. Let's start with a little catch up. So last night I came on with my brother Johnny, and we did a show together, which was fun. We had an opportunity to pop on and just sort of screw around. But we've been talking a lot, my brother and I. There's just so much going on, both for the lifeboat and for my brother's channel. There's just there's an awful lot going on, an awful lot of change, awful lot of growth. Very, very cool situation to be a content creator for sure. Working with AA Ron, the way that we're doing and working with Johnny, there's been a lot of growth in the boat in a very short period of time, and it's been fantastic, people. This is the kind of growth that everybody who has a YouTube channel dreams about, is growing at a rate like the one that we're in now. However, there are some things that happen because of the growth. We get an awful lot of new people, and it's an exciting thing. Whenever you start getting a grip of new people, especially if what you do, I mean, we're not your normal YouTube channel, right? I mean, what we do is really, really different. We have a goal. We have a vested interest in what we do here. We're not just coming on to create content, or we're not just coming on to talk and to make people feel good, right? We're actually trying to help people get sober. Just as importantly, we're trying to help people move on. And that can be a different thing for every person. What exactly it means to move on means something different for every person. All of us have something going on in our life that we're not in love with. Everybody. There's something going on in your life that, if you could wave a magic wand, would go away. And the question becomes, for so many of us, what is causing the malfunction in your life? What is causing you to sit and think, this has to change? This aspect of what I've got going on in my life has to stop instantly. It has to stop now. The thumbnail today was fantastic because it's the image of the guy grabbing the sides of his head is something that is just so real. It's very odd when you get to talk to people from every walk of life who are trying to get sober. It is the lifeboat is an odd experiment, because you get a lot of people who it is so obvious what needs to be fixed in a person's life. When you are using drugs 365 days a year, and your life revolves around putting a chemical in your body, you would think it would be painfully obvious to all parties involved that this is something that really needs to be quit. Something that really is the catalyst for change in a person's life. And then there are the people that just barely find us. Or they caught AA Run and they dig it, but they don't have a drinking problem. They don't have a drug problem. However, they do drugs 365 days a year. Or we've got individuals who aren't doing drugs every day. I got a couple of emails in the last week from people who just have a habit. These are individuals who do drugs but aren't 100% convinced that this is a problem for us. Hi, you all overslept? I'd like to oversleep once. I'd like to get that extra. Things are good, people. I'm just kidding. It's great to have Heather back. It's good that Heather is feeling better. You know, Heather was Heather has a myriad of health concerns that make life difficult. And you know what? I think we all get to a specific age where we start to get them. I obviously have got a couple of issues. Heather's are considerably more, I think, more painful than mine. The whole fibromyalgia thing is. I mean, I don't think it's something that those of us that have never endured it can wrap their brain around. I have, sadly, I know a dozen people with fibromyalgia, and it's just a really, really painful and horrendous illness. Kitty would not allow me to oversleep, maybe 10, 15 minutes most. See, now that's convenient, Calf. My cat, Squirrel doesn't have a problem getting you up. It's just that Squirrel doesn't get you up at the right time. Squirrel's all about you waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning for whatever reason seems to be important to Squirrel. It's very rarely convenient. I wish that my cat did the alarm thing. I have mine. Mine is a telephone version of the alarm. Diabetes sucks too. Yeah, to be sure. Tommy, my heart goes out to you. Diabetes definitely sucks. Well, of course, Johnny's on. Johnny's always on. My brother is as faithful a watcher of the lifeboat as anybody here. Now, if you're sitting here and thinking, well, I don't see Johnny here all the time. Johnny knows that if he pops into the average live feed and says, hey, how you doing? That he's going to derail the chat sometimes. So there are times that Johnny sits in silence, sometimes more often than not, I think. I have found since gaining a little bit of online popularity that I lurk more than anybody alive. I lurk when Heather's doing a show. I lurk a lot because if you pop up into the live feed and you're Captain Tommy, virtually the 36 or the 46 people that are in the chat, 76 people that are in the chat are all going to take the time to say hello, which is awesome, right? It's a very cool thing, but sometimes we can derail a live feed just by showing up in the chat. It's far worse, obviously, for my brother than it is for me. If my brother shows up on somebody's pepper channel, it's the end of whatever the subject is. Even whatever the guy who's eating is talking about, he's going to want Johnny's opinion or whatever. And it's I understand why the more popular you get, the more lurking that you got to do. But he is out there in Cyberland. Honestly and truthfully, folks, I don't think Johnny misses more than a couple a week. This really is kind of the backbone of my brother's sobriety, which I think is an awesome thing. I really do. I think that we all need a focus. We all need something to help us stay focused. So if you're finding yourself today, if it's Tuesday morning and you're literally tearing your hair out at the prospect of getting up and doing another day, if you're miserable with where you are, the first thing that needs to happen is we need to identify what it is that's making us miserable. And this is probably one of the funniest concepts to people that are hearing my voice. It is essential that you absolutely identify what it is that makes you miserable. And if you go, oh, come on, man, it should be painfully obvious. Drugs make me miserable. That wasn't painfully obvious for me. Even after 30 some odd years of doing heroin every day, what really was destroying my life was my inability to have any kind of open dialogue in a real relationship with anyone. Yeah, I have a thumping drug habit, and that was a huge part of my life. But it was not, as I started to really as I started to take on this journey, what I realized was that the drug was a symptom. As much as anything else in my life, the drug was a symptom of my disease. It was not necessarily the totality of my disease. And we talk about this a lot, but it's not enough for the vast majority of us in recovery. Getting rid of the chemical is just a start. It's just the beginning of a process that is going to lead to some pretty heavy self-discovery. People find themselves learning more about who they are than they ever thought possible. And that is when that is when the changes can really begin to happen. I used to think I was more miserable without getting high, and it made me feel so much better. You know, I was a person that uh, that believed you couldn't be happy, Kathy. I was a person that believed that without the aid of the chemicals that I had been addicted to for so long, that happiness was completely uh, without hope. This was not something that was so much as a possibility. Every moment of every day, I would find myself in stuck mode. I would find myself doing everything within my power to try and focus on anything other than the drug. And because this crap is so insidious, and because addiction is so insidious, what it does is it does exactly that. It tells you that you can't be happy without it, right? It's not going to be possible, Tommy, if you don't have your opiate receptors completely soaking, and if you don't have the mu receptor turned on full blast with enough opiates coursing through your body that you can feel no pain, even if you're going through minor surgery, then you're never going to be happy. And that is a reality of my life, and that is what I went through for so long a period of time. So the question becomes: if you're feeling that, if it's this Tuesday morning, if you're hearing the sound of my voice and you're not happy, if you're hearing the sound of my voice and every time the alarm goes off, you think, "Oh my God, I got to do this again." I've told the story many times on the lifeboat, but for decades, when I would wake up in the morning, and I was not an alarm guy because there's no reason to be an alarm guy. Stealing was not something that you punch a time clock for. You at least have your own schedules. There are not a lot of benefits to being a professional criminal. The hours you want to work certainly are are that benefit. But when I would wake up in the morning, the reason that I was waking up 9 times out of 10 was because the sickness had started, right? The withdrawal sickness had gotten to a point where it woke me up. I very rarely went to sleep. I passed out. When I was addicted, I did drugs until I nodded out, unconscious, and I would sit there with the last $150 worth of dope that I did in the last 30 minutes that I was awake, just enough drugs to make me fall asleep, and then that would last 6 hours or so, and as the drugs began to wear off out of my system and the withdrawal would begin to kick in, I would wake up. And that was how I would start my day, and I did that for literally decades. But when that day would start, when you would open your eyes and you would realize that here it is again, I would have a thought every morning, and the thought was always, if somebody showed up right now and handed you $1 million, would you rather have that, or would you rather have it just end? Would you rather have your life be over right now? Because you would think to yourself, with $1 million, you wouldn't need to go steal, you wouldn't need to do anything, and you'd have enough money. And the really funny thing is, it wouldn't have lasted me 3 years. $1 million. If you had given me $1 million, I would have done that in heroin in 3 years easily. 300,000 a year was really in the wheelhouse. And on top of that, your behaviors and your purchasing habits and things get really bad. I lacked love and safety. I just watched your video on Who Am I? So glad I found the lifeboat. Cherry Bakewell, we are so glad that you found the lifeboat as well. This journey that we're on is the one thing that I will say is that the journey that we are on is made far more palatable by the fact that we do not do this alone. The fact that we're broken, and I had somebody write me a long email about this. Oh, Johnny's listening. I had somebody write me a long email about this broken thing. And the guy said, I'm not broken. I was always, there was a reason that the term fixing was something that I didn't have a problem with that term, because to me, that's exactly what was going on. I needed to get fixed. I didn't work correctly without it. And without the ability to put that stuff into my body, I was not capable of going through the day. And it's because our brains aren't like other people's. It doesn't make us bad. It doesn't make us less than, but it sure as hell makes us different than. That's a reality. And it took a long time for me to come to grips with the fact that this is a disease, and I don't need to feel like I'm defective as a human. I have a medical condition, and that medical condition is no different than somebody that would be born with a medical condition like diabetes. The only difference is that our problem with drugs comes with a really healthy dose of derision, and a really healthy dose of an entire world that has no respect for you, and we're aware of that. Sometimes I think it's all about the label. I know that that's a really interesting comment in that. And I would probably need a little bit more to understand exactly what you mean by that. I know that for some people, it's easy to get hung up sometimes on labels. I think for some people, it's very, very difficult to get past that addiction. I think that what has come with the label for so long in that is that there is a superiority, and it's not among every normie. I've never ever wanted to be that guy, and I've never felt that way. I don't want it to ever be an us and them thing, right? My desire in life, my biggest desire in life, is to be a normie, right? I just would like to have drugs so much a part of my past that there's never a thought, that it's a foregone conclusion that for the rest of my time on this planet, hello, Snotface, it's good to see you, that for the rest of my time on this planet, there's no chance of me doing any substance. I struggled with the label of drug addict. I struggled with. There's so much about this entire process that was hard for me when we first got rolling, and it's really funny because, I'm standing there and I'm wearing prison khakis. The uniform that they give the federal government is like the off shift uniform for the Air Force. So it's like this khaki pants and a khaki shirt with a little name tag. It's I think everybody wants the label, because once you're labeled, well, there's something to that too. You know what I mean? There is something to that. You can manifest that label. I think, to be sure, I think you probably manifest any label. And I take amazing power in the label drug addict. It is the power that I take for all of what I do on this planet starts with the fact that I labeled myself a drug addict. When I was able to put a legitimate name to what my disease was, I'm not a weakling. I'm not a guy that needed to escape so badly that this disease was born in me. It's not a matter of having a defective character. I have a brain that fires in one section of the brain that fires differently than other people's, and I have another section that does not fire the way it is supposed to. Your brain would look exactly the same on a scan as mine, and that's probably about 95% of the people that find the lifeboat. Some people just need to change their lives. But for those of us that have the disease, that label will get you all the pills you want from the doctors and the government. Probably in some places and in some ways. For me, that the realization in that label meant that my days of doing anything that a doctor gave me had to be really, really different. My label came with the realization that I can't control anything that controls my psyche, anything that changes my consciousness. I have to really analyze the snot out of before I put it in my body. I'll give you a great example. There's a drug called carisoprodol. It was marketed under the name brand Soma. And if you ever read the book Brave New World, Soma was the drug that they gave out to everybody who had been genetically engineered for the life that they were going to live. Well, if you were genetically engineered to be a cab driver, or if you were genetically engineered to be a factory worker, they found that these people had a very difficult time going to work every day and being happy. So in their culture, these people would take vacations, and the vacations they would take, they didn't leave, they didn't go anywhere, they did drugs, and the drug was called Soma. But Soma is a muscle relaxer. Right? It's in the same family as Flexerol, cyclobenzaprine, any of those drugs that do exactly what they say. They help you relax muscles, very often muscles that spasm, or muscles that are injured, that stay sort of locked. If you've ever needed a muscle relaxer, it really is an amazing drug when you need one. Like if you're having problems with the musculature of your body and you're given a muscle relaxer to do something about it, it is as effective a drug. However, so I have been written prescriptions for Soma probably 5 or 6 times in my life. And there was a period of time in my life where I used to buy them illegally in Mexico, and I would bring them back to the United States when I lived in Texas. The thing with that drug is, I promise you I could get addicted to it in 2 weeks. I promise you. I never had a steady enough supply of muscle relaxers. They were never something that a doctor wrote long term, because I don't need a long term muscle relaxer. But there were times that I needed it because of injury, and because of what that drug does, I could become addicted to it overnight. I promise you I could. And I have to look at every substance going into it with that in mind, right? How fast would I get addicted to this? For me, the label addict has meant that there are so few things I can take. Talking to a doctor, it's the first thing I tell them, literally. Like if I go in there and the problem is my neck, and they say, well, what seems to be the problem, Mr. Scoville? I'm going to say, well, I'm a recovering heroin addict and have been off of opiates for about 8 years. That's going to be the icebreaker. That's going to be the first thing out of my mouth before I start the next freaking sentence. Because if I don't say that, he is going to have a completely different thought process about how you take care of Tommy Scoville. And for me, the label drug addict means that the vast majority of drugs that they're going to write me for things like pain, I can't take. Plain and simple, that's a wrap. And this goes across. There are so many different types of medication that I kind of have to have my. I have to have my game on at all times. The heart thing was a trip. You go into the hospital and they're going to give you whatever they give you. If to slow your heart down, they need to give you an opiate, they're going to do that. Or if they think the pain is so bad, they're going to give you an opiate, and there's no discussion about it. I was super blessed when I went in that pain really wasn't so much the issue. I had some chest pains, but I wasn't in complaining of chest pains. I was in complaining of a heart rate that was like a freight train that I just couldn't get to slow down. That was the complaint. But even still, it is the first disclaimer. It is the first thing that I say. And I know that that's probably an uncomfortable thought if you're new to sobriety. You know what I mean? We don't want this to be our defining characteristic. But the way that you make this drug not your defining characteristic is you make sure, the way you make sure that addiction is not your defining characteristic is you make it your defining characteristic for you, right? You have to make this drug your defining characteristic. And if you do that, if you make alcohol and beating it your defining characteristic, or if you make beating heroin or beating whatever your defining characteristic, then no one else is ever going to know about it. If that is in your head what defines you, if you say from this point on I have to live completely differently. Why? Because I'm a drug addict, because I'm not built like other people, right? I hate drugs. Makes me so mad, and how readily available they are. And your doctor will give you whatever you want. And then once you get addicted, they want to put you in a mental institution. You know what? There's really something to that, people. If you think that our friend is being crazy or paranoid or any of the things that people, those titles that people like to throw out, and that's spot on. There are a ton of doctors, sadly, on planet Earth who believe that to be a doctor means that you prescribe drugs to every single person that walks through the door. I mean, I think that there are times these days where maybe prescriptions aren't always the lead. I don't think we are as good in medicine now with all of the drugs that we have as we used to be. Once again, this recent thing, I've talked about this, but if not everybody sees every lifeboat. So let me, this bears mentioning again. Once my heart trouble, oh yeah, she says, you give a label instantly, whatever it may be. I know your life has totally changed. You may not even be able to get a license. Oh, there's no getting a license for me. No. I'm unable to do any of those things. Now, Annette, I have a bunch of other baggage that comes with being me, right? There were my crime. My crimes would make it all but impossible for me to work in the vast majority of fields that require licensing. Don't license ex-convicts as a rule of thumb. And you know what? I brought that on me. I know that there are a lot of people that I think that convicts need to be treated a lot better. I really do. But I think that I was a career criminal. What I did was different than what other people were doing. It was a lifestyle for me for a really long time. We all have baggage. Yeah, to be sure, we all have baggage. I know you got to watch the way we carry our baggage. Absolutely. That's a great comment. Everybody, and I'll tell you something, that means addicts and non-addicts alone. Everybody has baggage, to be sure. And this is the use of drugs and alcohol is our futile attempt, right? That it is our futile attempt to control the things that we can't control. It is our futile attempt at trying to get through, trying to make sense and get through life. We use drugs as a coping mechanism. We use booze as a coping mechanism. We use, this is something that so many of us do. It is part of our everyday. Is that everybody on this planet tries to get from A to B and have it make sense. I think all of us have sat there at one time or another in our life and looked down at our cell phone and thought, how in the hell did we end up here? Right? As a society, this is how far we've gotten. Remote controls. I remember when the remote control for the television set still had a cord in it. You remember that? When they had a little box that would change the channel or whatever, but it had a wire that ran all the way to the television set. I remember when watching Star Trek and seeing them flip open a a communicator, which just allowed them to communicate, by the way, right? It was like a flip Nextel communicator phone. But I remember when things that seemed so high tech now are just kind of funny, and the Earth is screaming forward at an alarming rate, and it makes making sense of your spot on this globe more difficult than it has ever been. It really does. It makes us wonder where we fit into all of this, and we've got artificial intelligence, we've got all of these things. Yeah, but it's up to us to clear our baggage, and that's what getting silver's all about. I assume you mean getting a little color in your hair. My hair right now, I need to shave. I haven't shaved in like a day, but if I let it start coming in these days, it's really, really silver. I don't know, but I gotta believe that your air conditioning is not doing what you want it to, because that sounded bad. I'm in the UK. I have the opposite. Have gone through pancreatitis and a broken pelvis with nothing but naproxen prescribed because of risk of addiction, and I have never been diagnosed as an addict. That is the most messed up thing I've ever heard in my life. If you went through, forget the pancreatitis, which is hell, but if you went through a broken pelvis and the only thing that they gave you is naproxen, then if you were in the States, you would sue those people and you would become rich. That is, I don't care if you are a drug addict. I don't care if you're a drug addict. If you have a broken pelvis, they should be giving you opiates. Make no mistake, from a heroin addict, the morphine molecule is one of the greatest discoveries in the history of humanity. Sorry, it is. It has allowed us to perform surgeries that we never would have done because the recovery of them. An open heart surgery, imagine cracking somebody's rib cage and not giving them opiates afterwards. That's the stupidest concept in the entire world, right? The pain medication is absolutely essential to having a productive and a happy life on this planet. Sorry, you know what I mean? It's my drug of choice, but it's a friggin' fact. I can't imagine a world without opiates, right? I can't. It's interesting. This is one of those areas, especially if your drug of choice is opiates, where you walk a tightrope line. I'll be honest. When I go into a hospital, I am doing everything within my power to get them to give me naproxen, right? Which is just, by the way, the non-prescription version of naproxen is Aleve here in the U.S., right? But it's just the same drug. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. I usually go for one a little bit stronger because they have one that they usually only give out in hospitals, and it's usually an injection, and it's called what is it called? Oh man, I just brain farted on it, and I ask for it every time I go in there. But it's a really, really strong non-steroidal anti-inflammatory that works as a painkiller. That Toradol. It's called Toradol. It is a very, very effective painkiller. There's no opiate in it, but it is a super effective painkiller, and I always go for that. But if I break my leg tomorrow, I'll be yelling morphine in the ambulance. I'm not waiting on any of that. If I have something that requires the need of pain medication, trust and believe. Thank you, Tommy Bird. See, Tommy knows. He said Toradol. That's Tommy and I share the same addiction. You know what? Toradol is the best, Annette, and you can't get addicted to it. You should have. I'm telling you, whenever they know now, I don't even have to bring it up anymore. If I go into a hospital, like it's on my file and everything else, that I'm going to be screaming for it, because I am militant about not taking opiates. My biggest threat on planet Earth is the morphine molecule. And I just said it's the greatest invention in history. I'm not capable of processing the morphine molecule. Tommy Bird is not capable of handling the morphine molecule. We're not built that way. And there's a lot of other people. It is an addiction that gets people about as fast as any of the other, right? I want to see my file. Tell them that, John Doe. I do. I got no problem whatsoever in telling people that I want to see my file. Annette said something earlier. You really do have to become you have to become an advocate, and you have to become an advocate in terms of people labeling you, and you have to become an advocate in terms of virtually everything about your medical history, your medical file, your interaction one-on-one with doctors. You have to become your loudest cheerleader and saying, you know what, I'd like to get a look at my file. I think that that's absolutely a genius thing to say. I really do. I think it's super important. I know that like when I got a chance to look at my file with a doctor, it says high opiate tolerance, big as hell across every single thing everywhere. If that's as far as the guy reads, it doesn't say don't give this guy dope. It says give him the best dope in the building. I mean, that's really what they're reading. High opiate tolerance. Nothing but fentanyl, nothing but Dilaudid. That's definitely right there coming across the top of the file. And I had never been busted or convicted of doctor shopping or any of that. If you have been, that's going to be the biggest thing that comes across the top of that file, is that you have tried to work doctors in the past. Yes, you have to become an advocate for yourself, because nobody else is going to do it. And don't expect it will just lead to disappointment. And that is right. No one is going to be an advocate for you. No one. You have to do it yourself. And so I had my heart thing. And you go into the hospital and the doctors make their rounds. And it's like watching House, if you've ever seen that, or Grey's Anatomy, where one doctor brings in 9 student doctors. These are doctors, but they're residents, right? So they're learning, and they all come through and look at your file and your case. And I was in a learning hospital, an educational facility, so that was the case. I saw four different doctors, all of them teaching physicians. So people would come in with them, and they would talk about my case, and then each of them kind of weighed in on the case and what they thought, and blah blah blah. When it's all said and done, I leave the hospital with six prescriptions. They prescribed 6 medications for me, and as I've talked about in the past, many of the medications absolutely contradicted other medications. For instance, 3 of the medications said don't take with aspirin, yet they wrote me a prescription for aspirin, which I was taking at the same time as all of these other medications. And Tommy's balance moot is why I stayed at first. This is actually a 5-day show, and most don't even know. A 5D show? I assumed you meant 5-day show. Tommy's balance is why I stayed at first. Okay. I'll take it. Balance is a good thing, man. I'll take it. I'm just happy that anybody stayed for any reason. The truth is, doctors are flat out dealers. They are. And not all of them. There are fantastic doctors, people. They still exist. But the vast majority of them are drug dealers. It's what they do. Their job is to write prescriptions. And they have gotten very good, sadly, at just sort of treating symptoms. And we live in that world, don't we? I mean, and sadly, half of the medications that you take cause symptoms that you need to take a medication for. And that's you can really go down that rabbit hole. Cherry, good for you. Cherry said, I plucked up the courage to email the doctors that my CPTSD was not being treated as per the NICE guidelines. Things changed really quickly. Only useful in the UK. Well, you know what, though? While that may only be useful in the UK, communicating with your doctor you can communicate with your local doctor, and the more you get involved in your own treatment, don't accept that whatever they're telling you is the right idea. Look up any medications that they're gonna give you. Read about every single freaking side effect, and question. One of the questions that I think is one of the most important things to ask, and that people don't, is why are you writing me this prescription? Right? I mean, they'll give you the cursory explanation. I'll give you a perfect example. So, because of how my specific heart problem works, as your heart spits out the blood, I have a little thing that sucks a little bit of blood back into the valve, and it pools in there. And it happens to a lot of us, by the way. There's a good chance that a lot of you that are hearing me have the same thing. But because the blood pools, anytime blood pools anywhere, they're worried about it turning into clots. They always want it constantly moving. They don't want it sitting around. So they said to me, this is why we're giving you Eliquis, so that blood doesn't back up, right? My primary is a Mormon, very conservative on meds. Well, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing at all. Conservative on meds is not a bad thing. Boltnick says combinations of non-narcotic maintenance drugs can mess you up pretty good. Absolutely, they can. I have individuals on the lifeboat who are trying really, really hard to get off of non-narcotic medication and having an absolute beast of a time doing it, because you can become dependent on things that are non-narcotic. I think this is something that people lose sight of. By the way, if people who take insulin are dependent on insulin, right? It's not always a bad thing to be dependent on something that you need, right? We really have a minefield that we walk through. Oh, you have a leaky heart valve. Rick, did you know originally that barbers were the real doctors, and the red on the barber pole is for blood, blue for the deoxygenated blood, and white for the bandages? Well, you know what? I did not realize that, Chris. There was a couple of really great Saturday Night Live skits back in the day that used to clown on the fact that, yeah, at one time you really did go to the barber. You didn't go to the doctor, and it was Steve Martin, and he would say, "Hey, who's the barber here?" Was like the Rick Smith said, "No, I didn't." Did I misquote you or something, Rick? Oh no, Rick is saying no, I didn't. Yeah, it's see, there's Johnny. Johnny knows the hey, I'm the who's the barber here. The problem is, like, I had a little too much mead at the Festival of the Vernal Equinox, and I darted it out in front of an ox cart. You'll feel great after a good bleeding. Nobody's getting this reference, but it was such a great skit. It really was. It was such a great skit. Much love, Captain and crew. My heart flutters, but we don't have AFib, Captain. Thank goodness. Yeah, my heart flutters as well, but I do not have AFib either. So, yeah, the old Saturday Night Live skits with the, I think it was called the barber of Seville or something was the name of the skit, and it's Steve Martin, and it's what's his name, Bill Murray. Bill Murray's so funny in that. All of those, everybody there. Johnny lurks in the shadow and waits for his moment. That really is my brother. Boy, you nailed that. Boy, you nailed that. Johnny he's a lurker. I told you, he lurks. He's a lurker. Yeah. Off topic, but it was so much fun watching the Scoville Brothers show last night. That's never off topic. If you're talking about how much fun it was watching the Scovilles, that is the topic. What are you kidding? That's not off topic. You know what? I had a ton of fun doing it. Johnny and I, the really funny thing is if you turn a camera on and you film my brother and I, it's the exact same thing if the camera's not on. Like we just hang out and act like idiots most of the time if we're together, even if it's just long distance together. No flinging hot sauce, Johnny, says Annette. Well, I think that's probably a pretty good advice. He says, I drop inside jokes on 75% of my vids that only a few people will ever get. I do that here a lot. There are a lot of references that are certainly made for one person. It was great. You bros click. You know what? We just, we have a lot has been made about my memory on the lifeboat because I have a very unusual memory. My brother doesn't have a normal memory either. His is also touched. So we tend to remember things from our past. And because we're sort of kind of linked up in a strange way as happens with siblings, very often whatever I see, like my brain goes to something and his is probably there before, so often when we're together, we just sort of have to look at each other and we know what the other is thinking. It makes for pretty funny conversation. My AC is stopping. Oh, no. I hope your AC figures itself out. Not having AC is just awful. I have been on... see this, I never do well with this, Cherry, because everything over there is called something different. Let me blow this up and see if I know what the hell that is. Mirtazapine, 45 milligrams for 14 years now. I'm being told that it is detrimental. I'm coming off it. I don't trust my doctor anymore. I don't know what that is, Cherry. I don't know what that is written. What that is written for either. Like a twin. It's exactly like a twin. We've definitely had that for a really long time. We've definitely really had that kind of a weird relationship for a really long time. Oh, John Doe's air conditioning is in AI mode. It's learning about him. Frightening, right? It is for PTSD. Okay. Do you know what family of drug it is in, Cherry? Would that be do you know if that is a tranquilizer or if that is an SSRI or what that is? Because I don't know the equivalent of it here in the US, but if it's for PTSD, it could be a whole host of things. Barber Theodoric of York. Was that the name of the skit? Irish twins. Oh, Lord. So Kathy says, I love Steve Martin so much. He's my 10. I got something, there's a funny picture, Kathy, and if I can find it, I will email it to you. But, I was a theater major in when I went to college. That's what I studied theater, and that was my kind of my go-to. But I played a cop in a play a million years ago, and it was one of the old kind of uniforms like you see in the cartoons with the 3 rows of copper buttons on them, brass buttons on them, whatever. And my hair was done in silver paint, but I looked so much like Steve Martin. Like everybody just freaked out. But I was a lot younger. I had a whole head of hair. But with silver hair, I definitely had a Steve Martin thing going on. I'll see if I can find it. My mom said Clint Eastwood was my real dad and Steve Martin was my uncle. Well, you gotta love that. Might have been more fun if that was a lock. We'd love to have him on. I'd kind of like to interview both of them. What's good for nausea from Suboxone? Having a real problem this morning. Been vomiting since the show started. It's not you, Tommy, is it? It could be. I've had that effect on women in the past, Curly. I'm not going to lie to you. Kelly, not going to lie to you. I've had that effect on women at least once. You're taking too much. If Suboxone is making your stomach uncomfortable, you are taking way too much of it. The Suboxone will only start to make your stomach do that backflip thing if the dose is too high. So you might want to. Remeron. I know exactly what Remeron is. Okay, I know what you're taking. Yeah, I know what Remeron is. There's a ton of people in prison on Remeron. Remeron actually gets sold in prison. People sell that drug because the people who don't take it every day tend to get knocked out by it, and it makes people go to sleep. Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek studied theater in Cali, UCLA. Nothing wrong with a couple of good, couple of fairly talented cats right there, man. Can you get a second opinion, says Kathy. And that is always a good idea. You know, honestly, it really is. I know that in some, Kath, I think in some places, though, that's a lot more difficult than it is here in the U.S. You know what I mean? Even if you're on a health plan or whatever, you can fire your doctor and go get another one. Sometimes it's a little bit harder in other countries to do the same thing. 9/11 day, 17 seconds delay. Fact. 9/11 day, 17 seconds delay. Fact. I'm not exactly sure if I know what that is, John Doe, but I got toe drag. I always have. Yeah, I love the Doors too. The Doors grew on me over time. It's crazy. People are abusing gabapentin now, says Anunnaki Child. Gabapentin has actually been abused for a hot minute. The first time I met anybody that was abusing gabapentin, it had to be 20 years ago or more. I was living with my brother Johnny, and we had been throwing them out. We had been throwing out bottles and bottles and bottles of it because the pain specialist that we went to would write you prescriptions for it. You pick up all your prescriptions at once, but we never took them. And we were getting name brand at the time too. It was it wasn't gabapentin, it was Neurontin, and we'd be throwing them in dumpsters. But yeah, there's a lot of people who abuse it. I'm coming off them. I have a prescribing nurse that knows more than the doctor. You know what? I think that happens a lot, Cherry, if you really want to know the truth. It certainly happens over here. I've had a couple of prescribing nurses that I was just blown away at how much more attentive and how much more on the ball they seem to be than the doctor. That is not unique, I don't think, and certainly not to your side of the pond. We have it happen here all the time. Really good advice is becoming an advocate. If you heard anything that Annette said today, because Annette said a lot of good things today, but if you heard anything that Annette said, man, get intimately involved in your own treatment. Talk to your doctor. Don't be afraid to say, why are you writing me this prescription? What is it that we want this prescription to do? I should have done that when I was in the hospital with the doctors. I did it as soon as I got out and I saw how many freaking prescriptions they wrote me. But I should have been doing it all along the way. The last piece of beef jerky always makes me want another piece. First of all, there's no such thing as the last piece of beef jerky. You mean the last piece in the bag, because there's no such thing as the last piece of beef jerky. Lemmy was a homicide detective in a movie. I did not know that. I've been I've done a little acting myself, except I was not a homicide detective in a film. And make sure that you find out why they are putting you on drugs. Absolutely. Ask them what is this prescription for? Why are you writing it? What is it we're hoping to get out of it? And how long do you intend for me to be taking it? Right? I mean, that's a huge thing. How long am I going to be on this drug? Is there an end game? Do you intend for me to take this for the rest of my life? I want to know that crap before I start taking a drug, right? Especially, and is there any alternatives? Thank you. Great, Annette. Really a good one. One of the things that YouTube scrubbed it. Okay. It is really essential to know how long you're going to be on it, because so many of these medications, I mean, read the back of the pill bottles that they write for prescriptions, and 9 out of 10 of them these days say, do not stop this cold turkey, right? You've got to tell the doctor before you stop this, blah, blah, blah. I am growing some as I've been a mouse. Now I have the lifeboat. I feel more able to speak for myself. Well, growing a set is definitely something that the lifeboat helps people with. Tommy, if you wanted to be an actor, you should have joined Scientology. Ray Kath, that's what I'm saying. If I had just linked up at the right time, there's no doubt that that would have helped. I didn't know, Johnny. I had no idea. I'm glad that you pointed that out. See, my brother's always there for me because he's slick. He sent me a little text. He said, I'm not sure if you were aware. I said, no, I'm not. I'm not aware. Tommy, if you wanted. Yeah, there certainly is actors are well represented in the Church of Scientology community, to be sure. L. Ron Hubbard had a plan. Totally off topic, but my dad will be in for his visit from Texas in a couple of days. Haven't seen him in over a year. I miss him. Congratulations, Tommy Bird. How cool is that? Awesome. Tommy, I'm going to keep you in my thoughts and prayers. I hope that goes as good as it should. I love it. I love it, man. A few days with Dad, that's good stuff. Lafayette, I thank you. This community is awesome, to be sure. We have a very, very cool community here. We've been blessed. He just celebrated 12 years of sobriety. Oh, please let him know that we're all super proud of him here at the boat. And you know what? On a separate note, he really did a hell of a job raising you. For real. He should be proud. I'd be stoked. For, if all my kids turn out as good as you, I'll be very, very pleased. Electric food for our electric bodies. Now that sounds very interesting to me. You know what? Scooby just broke that down, and that's actually, everybody see that? We'll stick that up there. That right there pretty much sums it up. Scooby with a doobie says, why do I need this prescription? How much and how long? Is there something else I could take? Any side effects? Any worse effects if I stop taking it? All the questions I ask my doctors. Those are solid. That should be the litany right there, right? Yankee Kyle's 35 years sober. No, I don't know a whole lot sober longer than Kyle either. Occasionally we have a woman that stops in on the boat. I would say maybe once every couple of months. Every couple of months we have somebody that stops by, and they will pop in the comment section and they will say, it has been 50 years since the last time I got high. And I think that's the longest I've ever seen in the comment section. But 35 is a long, long time. Poe, as a kid, his mom played Juliet. He watched her die 5 times a week, front row. At the premiere for the movie, my mom, dad, and 2 brothers were there. My mom called my brother during the movie to complain about the cursing. Oh, that sounds like something that my mother would do. I never cursed in a film, but I played Satan once in a small theater up in the Northeast. We did a play by Archibald MacLeish called JB, based on the book of the Bible, Job, and I played Satan. And I think it disturbed the hell out of my mom, if you want to know the truth. Tommy Bird, I mean that, man. You're one of my favorite people, Tommy, and some of the greatest comments. I was doing math, because once a week they kick you out all of this. They tell you everything that happened the previous week, right? Of your time on YouTube, and you start to extrapolate. You say, okay, well, this last week we got 1,300 and something comments, and you start going, all right. So that was a good size week. What if on an average week we do like 800? And then you start multiplying that by how long you've been on the air, and you start to realize that without, like, when you say something on someone's comment and they fire back at you, and then one comment turns into 3 or 4 comments or whatever. But the boat's had well over 100,000 comments since it started. 100,000. And Tommy Bird, you've had some of the comments that made me think the most, and some of the comments that just really poignant stuff. You've always great to have you around. Oh man, yeah, Nani, my grandmother was so funny. My grandmother would say things to, the biggest guy in the world would curse at a diner, and this dude, like Hell's Angels jacket, 1%er patch, like that kind of guy. And my grandmother would go up to him and say, "You really shouldn't talk like that." And I would look at Johnny like, "All right, here it goes." Right? Nani's going to get us killed. He's going to get us taken off the planet. But she was an amazing woman. Alrighty, people, I'm going to go start my day. I don't know about you guys. I got a ton that I got to do. Thank you for taking the time to share part of your morning with me. We know that there are a lot of options on YouTube. We thank you for selecting the life move. Please check before you deboat, as the contents of your carry-on may have shifted during the show. I am Captain Tommy Scoville. And this kitty with her head hanging over the side of the basket, that's Squirrel. And that's an ice machine. And she did not like it. Not one little bit. All right, everybody, make it a hell of a day. I'm Captain Tommy. Bye-bye.